Welcome, Bill.
I took a sip at the wrong time then, didn't I?
Hold on. Welcome, Bill. Welcome to Teach Me How to Wrexham. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. Got my unlucky Wales shirt on, which is probably not a good sign for the Wales match that's happening after we've recorded this. So just we always seem to have a bit of kit info, don't we, every time? So I've mixed it up. I've got a Wales top on this time. Wales are playing Latvia later on. We've never actually won a game in this shirt. So we wore this shirt in the Euros 2016, lost to England, lost to Portugal in it, even though that was like a really good tournament for us. So I don't really actually know why I'm wearing this one, because we could do with beating Latvia today, but that's another podcast. That's a Teach Me How to Wales. When we run out of teams to Wrexham, that might be what we move on to next.
Well, you know what I really love about that? I like that BD, that BDE, that big Bill energy. You came out, you said, you know what? I'm so assured of Wales that I'm going to put the most unlucky shirt on, the most unlucky kit. And I'm swinging that heavy that I know that it won't matter.
I think it's kind of the opposite, Ran. I think there's a chance that we might get a bad result today. So I've got something in mind that, like if a fighter fights in the UFC or boxing and they don't really train much before the fight, and then they can, even though they were probably going to lose to the person they were fighting anyway, they can go, I didn't train, I was drinking the week before. If we lose, I can go, well, it's my fault, I shouldn't have worn the top. It's nothing to do with the fact that Wales have gone rubbish. So
you gave yourself an out.
I give myself an out. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of giving ourselves an out, I'm going to try something different. I assume that I'm going to screw it up and that I'm not going to do well, but I'm going to kind of say an introduction to any new fans to any new viewers that are out there. Somebody slapped me in the face for even saying that. Sorry, I was working on my other website where I make money. Only friends earlier today.
Only Rands.
Only Rands. Yeah, let me go again, because that's horrible. So for any new viewers that are out there, if you're watching this for the first time, I'm Ran. This is Bill. I am the novice. Bill is the expert. He'll probably put that in quotations, but compared to me, he is definitely the expert. I would like to know more about Wrexham. I'm a fairly new fan. Bill has been following the team for a number of years now. He's part of the communications team that does the broadcasting of the games. So you would have heard him on some of the matches from previous seasons. He's also a professional guest on podcasts now. He's been making the rounds. So if you haven't had Bill on your podcast yet, feel free to reach out to him. That is his, I believe, Twitter handle, or his X handle, the @belong1864. And what Bill does is give me some basic 101 knowledge. There's a lot of information for people that have been following either the sport or the team for years, that they're on a much higher level than where some new fans like me are at, where there are some basic, like, how to spell cat type of scenarios that I would like to know, that people that have been following it for a long time don't really need to be bothered with those details. So if you're a new fan, or a new fan to football, or a new fan to Wrexham, this might be something that creates a little bit of value towards you or for you. And we profile on this series, the Know Your Enemy. We profile our opposition, the teams that we're going to be facing, a little bit about their history, some significant things or players, people inside of their past, and how that relates to us from a Wrexham perspective. You could look at it as, do we care about them? Do we don't care about them? Do we like them or dislike them? Do we have a rivalry? Do we have a partnership? And a lot of those things, we found that there are a lot of similarities amongst a lot of these teams that we are facing, that have been through similar things that we've been to in the past.
I'll just add a little bit about my
yes.
You are right, my expert sort of status. My knowledge is quite anecdotal, so you'll get a lot of people who are football fans who will remember, like the direction of the wind on the day that we beat a team on Tuesday, September the 13th, 10, 15 years ago. I'm not really that kind of football fan. I kind of remember anecdotal stuff a little bit more than stats. So I think what I try and bring is that little bit of more like local knowledge, things that you might not necessarily find on Wikipedia. And then when I don't know something, I'll look on Wikipedia.
Yeah. Well, and let's just preface that. Anybody that's coming out here and you want to know what the moisture percentage was on days and matches that Wrexham won by 2 or more goals, this is not the place for you. Although, if that comes up in some of our research, we might talk about it. That's not what we're out to set. And yeah, I enjoy the anecdotal stories. I love narrative storytelling. You'll hear me drop film references and TV references because that's what I mostly know. And Bill is great with his personal knowledge. Watch back some of his scales on how many burgers to the face a rivalry might be. But this is a version that I thoroughly enjoy, and hopefully a lot of new fans, new followers of Wrexham in the EFL enjoy as well. Today we are looking at Grimsby Town FC. I wanted to add, normally what I say is, first and foremost, who is Grimsby Town FC? And I pass it over to Bill, but I wanted to throw this out there just because I love learning languages and I love etymology of words. Bill, were you aware of Grimsby, where the name comes from?
No, not particularly, other than the word grim is in there, and I'm not sure it's got a reputation for being a particularly nice place, although I feel tight because I'd imagine Wrexham didn't used to have a particularly good reputation pre-documentary, so I didn't want to slag anyone off from Grimsby.
Yeah, okay. And fair point, because when I was looking up things, a lot of the things were like, why is Grimsby so miserable? Like 10 places not to live in the UK, etc. So Grimsby is another Norse town. It was ruled by the Danes, by the Danish. And so Grimsby is a Norse phrase, Norse etymology. Grim being another word for Odin. And so Grim's, Odin's, and the by is town in Norse. So it's Odin's town. And so in a little bit like we have out here in Arizona, Mesa, there's a lot of Spanish words. Mesa means table. There is a small town called Table Mesa. And so it's just table means Mesa. It's like table town. So Grimsby Town FC. So yeah, that's just a little bit of background about that. But outside of Odin's rule, which we are back to back Norse towning it up today. Bill, who is Grimsby Town FC?
So a little bit about Grimsby as a place first. Grimsby's a town located in Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire is in the northeast of England, roughly northeast anyway. It's kind of, well, you'd say northeast, but if I'm being picky, it's kind of like in the mid. You know, if you're looking on a map, it would look like the middle, but everywhere north of London is basically considered the north in terms of how English people sort of
heliocentric type of people. That is,
yeah. Grimsby's ground, Blundell Park, is actually located in another town called Cleethorpes. So, I mean, those two towns are like adjacent to each other, and I'd imagine everyone from Cleethorpes is a Grimsby fan as well. Sorry, the dog's going off. What do you want? He's gone quiet now. Doesn't like Grimsby, apparently.
No, nothing like a good alpha move to put that dog into place.
Come here. Just give me a second. I'll just open the door so we can roam a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you want, bud?
So this is a time when Bill's gone, when we speak about how we really feel about him. So he gets a little.
He wants the toilet. I'll just be a second.
Okay.
Come on.
Gets a little long-winded. You know what I'm saying? A little long in the neck. If you know, looks like a baby brontosaurus, a little giraffe that wears glasses and headphones.
So where was I? Grimsby, yeah. So Grimsby the town is next to Cleethorpes. It's in the northeast of Lincolnshire, which is in the northeast itself. They are very, very much a fishing town, and much like how Wrexham will get all the sheep shagger stuff, like any of the other Welsh clubs, Grimsby always get you only sing when you're fishing as a chant, and they get stuff like that. And fans that are playing them think it's absolutely hilarious, but I'd imagine it's kind of like, oh yeah, well done, you're not the first to sing that. Right. Like we have with the sheep shaggers. They every team we play against think that we've never heard that before, but obviously we have multiple times.
Like somebody talking to Bill and saying like, why the long face? It's like you've heard that a million times. Yeah,
exactly. So they play in Blundell Park, which is a 9,000 all-seater stadium, which makes it, with it being a four-sided ground, makes it a little bit smaller than what we'd be if we had our other stand in a full capacity. But again, like I've said multiple times about a lot of the clubs, they are a really, really similar club to us. They've spent time, I've actually spent time in the top division, but they've done that sort of bouncing around between the Championship and the National League over the years. When they were in the top division, it was pre-Premier League, but they were there for a while. So they're a good club. They're a big club. A lot of people actually, watching, listening, will recognise them as being the team that knocked us out as the playoffs at the end of season 1 of Welcome to Wrexham.
For people that didn't catch that game, which who's watching this that didn't? Do you want to do a quick recap of what happened?
I mean,
the year is 2020, or wait. No, I'm sorry, 2021. What? Oh no, I'm totally off. 2022. It's the end of the season.
It was the 21-22 season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they the final score was 5-4. It went to extra time, and it went in 4-4 into extra time. We went down 2-1 at one point. I'm just looking at the score because it was that crazy. I can't really remember the exact details. I just remember goals seemed to be going in every 5 minutes, especially in the second half. But
Ben Tozer heads went in to make it 2-1.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a crazy, crazy game, and kind of walked away from it. Obviously disappointed that we hadn't progressed, but it kind of felt like Grimsby deserved to win it, so it wasn't really a huge blow. And then they go on to win the playoff final and go up to League Two that season.
That's the one where Paul Mullen heads in. I think it was a third goal, but the hands right in front of the.
Yeah. It was, and they probably should have had their keeper sent off, and we should have had a penalty in the opening couple of minutes, really. But we got the penalty, but the keeper should have been sent off because he completely wiped out Bryce Zana. So the keeper goes off. They didn't have a keeper on their bench. That completely changes the game, then, doesn't it? There's a good chance that we go on and win it, but that's the fine margins with football. They currently the time
they go on in the playoffs, right? And they go on, and then that was the semifinals. And then they go on to the finals, and they pull the Disney miracle, and they actually do win and get promoted.
And they'd beaten Notts County in the round before us.
Yeah.
And then went on to beat Chesterfield in the final. And obviously us and Notts County have come up, and there's a good chance that Chesterfield are one of the favourites to go up from the National League this season as well. So there's a good chance that by the time, if Chesterfield do go up, that they'll have beaten 3 teams that were also destined to be in League Two. So they, obviously really good side. They'd only gone down the season previous, and it's quite unusual for a team to come down into the National League and go straight back up. It does happen, but I think Bristol Rovers were the first team to do it we're talking about, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. Bristol Rovers were the first team to have done that in 15, 16 years at that point. So that just goes to show that a couple of teams have done it since, but that just goes to show that you can have these massive gaps of teams not going back up straight away. So,
the hell that is the National League and the escaping it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good riddance.
Yeah, very good riddance. Yeah. A player who still plays for Grimsby, actually, who scored 2 of the goals in that game was Luke Waterfall, who used to play for Wrexham. He's been playing for Grimsby for a while now, but he's still in their first team. In terms of their other players, they have Raquel Pike. He spent two periods on loan at Wrexham. Probably didn't quite fulfill his potential when he was with us, but I think he's done all right since he left. They also have, let me have a look. Is there any other?
Do they still have McAtee?
No, I think he went. I'm just looking at their line. Yeah, I think he went to. I'm not sure where he went, but he's definitely only just gone this summer. But he was a very good player. He did really well in that match. So they've also signed a player called Abo Isa, whose surname you might recognise because his older brother scored past us for MK Dons at the start of the season.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
He plays on the wing for Grimsby. And then
a good family, huh?
Well, yeah, because I'm sure they've got a younger brother as well who plays for someone who I can't remember off the top of my head, but the 3 of them are all playing professional football. And then there's a couple of names I recognise other than that, but I think they're, the players that have been hanging around the lower leagues for years. Danny Rose is playing up front for him. He's played for Stevenage and a few other teams. So they've got a pretty decent side. Where are they in the table at the moment?
I think they're 12th.
Yeah, they're 12th. Their form is in the last 5, they've drawn 3 and won 2, which, this early stage of the season,
look at one of those wins. What was it, 3 games ago or 2 games ago? They played Gillingham.
Yes. Yeah. They beat Gillingham 2-0. Sorry, my cats I'm having all the pet situation going on. My cats just started fighting right next to me then.
Also, if this is one of the first ones that you're watching, we almost always, like the bastard child of askWxm, have a cat that appears. This superstar's name, what is the name of this cat, Bill?
That was Rocky.
That is Rocky.
Who's got an ironic nickname because she's a little princess. She's absolutely tiny, but we gave her like the hardest sounding name that we could give her.
Well, I could tell it was her because in the background, hey, Adrian. That's the worst impersonation. I don't do good impersonations, or impressions.
She doesn't look happy to be on me, but usually she is. It's just because I'm holding her up to the camera. She's
little sweetie, little sweetie right there. Yeah, and so they're mid-table team doing mid-table team stuff, but actually not taking big thrashings either. Like looking at the score lines, it's not like they're getting mopped over 5-1 or 5-0 or anything like that.
And this is a tough league to play in. There's going to be a lot of teams that are pretty good that will finish mid-table. It's not quite like the National League where you'd probably say from 10th downwards Wrexham should be beating all of those sort of teams, but actually now we're not really in that position. Even if we do finish in the top 6 or 7, we're still going to have results where we lose to somebody who you'd think that we should be beating or whatever. So can't take any of these games for granted. They've got a pretty good record at the race course as well. So we'll soon see, I guess.
Well, and look at our last match against Doncaster. It, however, wasn't 0-0 that Bill called, but it was pretty dang close. That was the last place team that had the second most goals scored against or goals conceded. Although we looked really good, we did struggle at times. There were moments where, and like you said, the quality within this league isn't miles apart, where on the table from 1 to 24 in the National League is like 2 different leagues. In this league, 1 to 24, that spectrum is a lot more narrow. Yeah, if you're looking at the color spectrum of wavelengths, that's that narrow band of visible spectrum is the League 2 competition. It's really small.
100%. And, we absolutely battered Tranmere the other week. I know we only won 1-0, but we should have won by about 5 or 6, really. And then they've just sat their manager, and it's that early in the season that they could then go and have a playoff run. Do you know? I don't think they will, because I don't think their players are particularly good, but it's
possible.
it's not completely unreasonable for that to happen. Looking at our history against Grimsby now, I'm on 11v11, which we're not sponsored by, but if they do want to sponsor us, they can get in touch.
Which is news that I wanted to tell you about. So we do have a sponsor this week.
Yeah. Nice.
So a good segue. Let's do a transition here. So we'll have a swipe come over, a nice transition. This week's episode is brought to you by no one.
Hey.
No, we don't have a sponsor. I'm a liar. So yeah. No, but 11v11 is a website that shows the head-to-head history of two teams, obviously the matchup.
Now,
and
I'm only a little bit skeptical because it doesn't seem to have our record against them in the National League, which they did spend before they went down and came back. They also spent a number of years in the National League around 2010 to about 2016, I think.
Yeah,
but
sounds right.
Our Football League record against them is 21 games won, 12 drawn, and 22 lost. So over the years, that's quite a narrow gap, really, isn't it? Fair to say.
So National League might not be listed on 11v11.
No, but since I've been supporting Wrexham, which is around 2000. Well, I've always gone to Wrexham games since I started going religiously in 2005. We in the Football League lost 4, drawn 1, and won 1. So I have a bit of a personal history of not particularly liking Grimsby, because they always seem to do us over when I go to watch Wrexham Grimsby. There was the first game that I'd ever watched us play Grimsby in. Was New Year's Eve. The referee was called Darren Deadman, and I only know that because I'm looking at the exact game now. We went up 1-0 in the 42nd minute through Mark Jones, who, for anyone who doesn't know Mark Jones, he is a midfielder who was from Wrexham. He's kind of like that era's version of Jordan Davis.
Okay.
Local lad, plays quite a similar sort of style of football, scored a lot of goals. He put us 1-0 up at the racecourse, and then they scored 2 in the second half to win. And the guy who scored the first goal, Michael Reddy, had been receiving all sorts of abuse all game for his long hair. I won't say the chant because it's probably a bit culturally insensitive now. And he scored 1 and then set the other up. And that just happens in matches sometimes, where some players just absolutely thrive on getting abuse thrown at them. And that second half, he had an absolute storm where he played out of his skin. So a bit of a lesson sometimes to not always wind the opposition up, because it can backfire.
Like the movie White Men Can't Jump. He plays better when he's mad. So don't piss him off.
Yeah. We then lost to him 2-0 the same season. Michael Reddy scoring again.
Wow.
In the away game. And then we didn't beat them in my time watching until the start of the next season, which was the first year I had a season ticket, and we won 3-0. So that was that. I don't know why, but I really remember those 3 games clearly, because I think it was the first time I sort of properly experienced like a team beating us twice in a season, and especially that first game when they beat us was like us going 1-up, and I was being a naive 15-year-old thinking that we were going to cruise till the end of the game, and then they go and score 2, especially that last sort of one in the last 5 minutes.
They like to do that. Those last few minute goals.
It's good. It's good when it's us against Doncaster, but not under the circumstances. So another significant game that we played against them in recent memory was in the Football League Trophy, the FA Trophy in 2013. So that those who watched the documentary or were watching the Wrexham games around that period, we lost that to Bromley.
Bromley.
Yeah, in the final in Wembley, we lost against Bromley. When we played in the all-white kit and they played in black. But we did actually beat Grimsby in that same trophy in 2013. Beat them on penalties, and it was the first time Wrexham had ever won a trophy at Wembley. Because when we'd won the football League trophy in 2005, the old Wembley had been closed for renovation, and that game actually took place in Cardiff.
Oh, wow.
Even though we'd already won a trophy, it wasn't in Wembley. So that game was the first one in Wembley. And I wasn't there because I was on a school trip.
No,
not myself. It was a work trip, but obviously I work in a school, so we booked it well in advance. It was in Barcelona. To be fair, it was a football trip, so we got to see the new camp and a few other places. So it was a good trip. But me and a couple.
Did you watch the match? Or?
Yeah, right. So it was a 26-hour coach trip.
Whew.
So we get on the coach in Wrexham to Dover, then you get the ferry from Dover into France, and you literally drive all the way down through France to Barcelona. So we were knackered, and we got there a couple of hours before the game kicked off, and myself and a couple of lads who were Wrexham fans had to huddle around a computer. It was like a proper old for the time computer with like a coin meter sort of attached to it. So to go on it, you had to put euros in the meter to keep the internet going.
That's good. That's good.
Obviously, you can't get it on Spanish TV. Like they're not interested in the Football League trophy. You know what I mean? So we had to watch it on the Welsh language channel through a proxy server.
You mean Ryan Ronaldo had not bought and purchased the team yet?
Not yet. No. I mean, I don't even then. I don't think it would have been on TV. To be honest, I don't like the Spanish. Generally, they've got enough good football in their country.
Yeah, they got their own league. That. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, so we're sitting there like hoping that it doesn't. Like, I don't even think it had like a meter at the bottom telling you. So you're like just like, do we need to put another euro in? Yeah, go on then. And we're just like sticking it in.
You guys paid for 37 hours on accident. You cautioned to safety and just threw it in. What was that like? I mean, compared to now, where most of the matches now we get to watch them. Most of them are televised. Compare that to, obviously times have changed, but to be sitting there with a couple of the lads there that are following Wrexham. Now, if you took a trip to Barcelona and you had a class or a grade of students.
No, it would probably be the whole class, to be honest, especially all the lads who enjoy, because it was a football trip. So it was all lads that played football. So yeah, definitely it would have been probably the whole group. I mean, I think in fairness, there was me, two others, and maybe a couple more actually, but there was definitely the two lads. They were brothers, and they were. I still see them at the racecourse every now and again. Now, like they always come and have a chat. They are proper diehard Wrexham fans. So we were sitting watching it religiously, but a lot of the lads were coming in and out to check what the score was. You know what I mean? And like, what is it now, and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, the computer screen was probably only about that big as well. It was you're talking real. Like we kind of got lucky, to be honest. There was even something there, but it was very low tech even for 2013.
Nice pixelated buffering images.
Yeah.
Which is always good when you hear the crowd cheer, but you missed something because it was lagging or buffering, and you're like, all right, something happened. And then back then, I don't know if when those were televised, would they do replays? Because you said that was 2013, was it?
Yeah, so it would have been quite. I was on S4C, which is the Welsh language channel. It would have had commentary, but it would have been in Welsh. But it would have been like a proper TV production. They'd have had replays and commentators and everything. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily get that in the National League, other than the very rare game that was televised when, say, the international matches were on, and there was no Premier League that week. They would occasionally put a National League game on TV, but other than that, it was rare to see too many. And I think the league as a whole has gotten more exposure, just as much because of COVID, and more people are watching football on TV around then. But obviously, the Wrexham exposure is helping the league a lot too. But yeah, that game was 1-1. They scored in the 70th minute. Then we had the penalty in the 81st. Took the game to penalties. And actually, Sean Pearson, who ended up playing for Wrexham was playing for Grimsby that day, and he did go back to Grimsby to play for them when they beat us in the playoff final. So there's that little bit of weird, like, sort of symmetry there. We lost the final against Wrexham and then won a semi-final against Wrexham, and played for Wrexham in between both of those things happening. So Sean Pearson, what a player. But on the bench in the team for Wrexham that day was Dean Keats, who ended up going on to managers.
Hey.
He was our captain that day. Andy Morrell, who was the player manager, who some of you may have heard on the BBC radio commentary. Although, you shouldn't be listening to that. You should be listening to the I Follow commentary, the Wrexham team. But that's, if you do listen to them, then fair enough. So, I mean, overall, a very good day. But I've never seen a team that I support win at Wembley. I've been to see Wales play England once, and we lost that 1-0. I've been to see Wrexham play in the playoff final against Newport. We lost that. I went to watch Wrexham play in the Football League, in the FA. I keep calling it the Football League Trophy, the FA Trophy, a couple of years later, and we lost to what are they called? North Ferriby United, who were a couple of leagues below us. Shouldn't have lost that game at all. Lost that FA Trophy final. And then when we played Bromley, we lost that FA Trophy final. So I am never going to Wembley again. Even if it's a Championship playoff final, I would have to seriously consider not going, because I think I am cursed.
Wait, are you a superstitious person? Is this because I know for us, like, we do have a bit of superstition with sports. Is that as prevalent, and is that prevalent for you?
Oh yeah. No, I am not a superstitious person in the slightest, apart from with football. Yeah. This one
area,
just football.
Logic, reason. You're basically Spock from Star Trek, and it's only logic and reason used. But as soon as that whistle blows for 90 minutes, all logic and reason is gone.
Oh, mate, there's tops that I will not. Football tops that I will not wear at the racecourse because we've lost games. I mean, there's this situation, but there's tops that we've not necessarily like had bad seasons in them. It's just I've personally worn that top to a game and we've lost 5-0. So I was like, right, that's never wearing that shirt again. I've got a lucky set of, like, it's sad, but a lot of football fans will say this: the lucky set of underwear, lucky set of socks, there's jeans, trainers that I just. It's almost embarrassing because I am not like this as a person at all, but with the football, I will, like, genuinely think, can I wear these clothes together? Because is that a good look matchup? Yeah, okay, that's fine. We won last week when I was wearing this jumper. I'm going to wear that jumper today, and that's that.
Yeah,
which was quite nice last season because it upgraded a lot of tops that maybe weren't lucky, but we were winning every week. So like they suddenly all became lucky tops. So it was fine.
Get that old stank off of it. Give it the proper washing of bringing it out to what the 2022 season of Wrexham. That was the season that if you wanted cobwebs to get dusted off of a cursed shirt or jersey, you should have done it. It's crazy how we can get inside our own heads about things that if you just stop, it's like, it makes no sense at all. Like the fact that you're wearing a shirt can affect all the work and preparation that all of those people that have been training their whole lives, they're going to practice 3-5 times a week, and they're living, dying, their diet's fine-tuned, they're running plays, they've got people that are coaching them to the peak of their performance. They've sacrificed time with their family, missing holidays or birthdays, pursue this one pinnacle professional thing.
Because I wore blue socks in the crowd. That's instead of red socks or black socks or something. Yeah, no, it is kind of crazy. The best one for me is my dad's an Aston Villa fan because he's from Birmingham, and he went a couple of weeks playing. I mean, this is going way back now because he doesn't really play video games anymore. But he went a couple of weeks playing FIFA before the Villa game, and they'd lost a couple of weeks in a row. I was like, right, that's it. Nobody in the house can play FIFA on a match day until after the game's over. And that stuck for years. Like, we were like, maybe it was just me and Che were that little that we just sort of let it be ingrained in. It's like, nope, can't play FIFA now because Villa or England, or because he's an England fan as well, whoever are playing later, we can't play FIFA, and that was it. until I grew up and just kind of realized some of it's silly, even though I've hung on to some other aspects of it.
I same thing. I do the same thing, even though I know like this can't make sense. You can't block that like voice in your head that's like, but what if this time? But what if it is? And what if this time, if all of this is on the line and everything, we're like, we need this win, we need the promotion. If all of this is on the line and it was me being too stuck in my own ways of going, superstition's not real. I mean, like for this season, I haven't put on a kit in the first half of any of the matches, except for the very first MK Dons.
Right, there you go. So you're indoctrinated now, Ran. You get it. You understand the silly superstition aspect of it.
Yeah, and so it defies logic, but it doesn't matter. In episodes of the heart will trump the mind.
I think I will say one thing though. If you're a match day going fan, there is genuinely a butterfly effect. If you go to a game nervous, then that nervous energy can be passed on to the players. All right, don't get me wrong. You know, the chances of you not wearing your lucky socks making you more nervous than if you did wear your lucky socks is pretty slim, isn't it? Really, but you know, you got to go to the game in the right mentality, make your preparations, and
no, for sure. There's mind games because just in the same note that some of these moves or some of these plays, when you see different formations and different players starting, there's a bit of mind games going on from managers who are like, we're going to do a certain thing to not have the opponent's defense prepared for some plays or some things that we're going to run. There also is that atmosphere of the stadium, to a greater extent, the atmosphere of social media as like its own stadium, where if there's players that are on there and you have a player that's just getting stick constantly, that could get into that player's head and that player could end up not playing well because now they're coming into the stadium and they're face to face in front of all these people who have been saying, oh, they suck, they shouldn't be playing, they shouldn't be out there. So definitely, like you said, that butterfly effect, it could go from just one person where it's minuscule and it wouldn't affect it to it get large enough to where you have a whole stadium of people who are booing you when you're on, booing you at the half and etc. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Football fans are a weird breed, myself included, Rand. You know, like you say, it's probably more of a sports thing, isn't it? I guess it's that sort of feeling of ultimately you have no control over the outcome, do you? So there's that. Yeah. You've got to have your little wins at home, those psychological wins, to sort of feel like you've got some level of control over the game. And
for sure,
I think, like I say, like last year did no good for my superstition overload, because I made sure I wore lucky stuff every week and we won every week. So it's kind of reaffirmed.
Everyone can thank Bill.
Things. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
If it wasn't for Bill's 2-a-days, him working in and out, staying focused, showing up to first one to practice, last one to leave, taking penalty shots on the weekends when no one's around, mowing the grass himself. If it wasn't for Bill, last season's promotion wouldn't happen.
I take every single bit of credit for that 111 points, which 11 is my lucky number. So, 111, that's kind of, it's 100% me, 100% me.
You're welcome. You're welcome, everyone. You're welcome. It should be You're Welcome, Wrexham, season 2 coming out. But so yeah, and also you're going to the matches and having some like history with Grimsby. Were you there for that match, Grimsby promotion match?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it was. It's the first time I've kind of come away from first and only time actually I've come away from a big game that we've lost and not been overly disappointed, because I just had a feeling that we do what we did last year. Do you know what I mean? Like yeah, we lost, but it just kind of felt like we'd run out of steam. Really, the team had peaked around sort of February, March. We weren't quite as the squad wasn't as deep as it ended up being the season after, and Stockport had already, accumulated all those points. That to miss out on the title, the nature of it was a little bit disappointing. But I kind of felt like when we got into the playoffs that we probably weren't going to win, because quite often the team that finishes second don't go through with it, which kind of actually makes Notts County's achievement, even more impressive. But so losing that final, like, we sort of came away from that on the day and was just kind of like, you know what, it's not the end of the world. Grimsby fans, they're quite a good bunch. I've never seen any trouble between Wrexham and Grimsby. And actually, for anyone who doesn't know, at the time after that, there was I think it's the club or a bus company of some sort really tried to swindle the Grimsby fans, and they were charging loads and loads for the coach and the tickets and everything.
Oh man!
So they started raising a bit of money for their own fans who couldn't afford to go, to help pay for coach tickets and stuff. And Wrexham fans ended up sort of donating quite a decent amount to that. Which,
that's great.
I'm not like trying to, I'm not trying to big us up too much, but it was quite magnanimous in defeat. And I think a lot of Grimsby fans appreciated it. And I think in return, the Grimsby Supporters Trust, or whoever it was that raised the money, actually gave Wrexham a couple thousand for some kids to have some free mascot positions. So there's quite I wouldn't say there's a huge partnership or friendship there between both clubs, but I think there's a lot of mutual respect there, really.
That's good. Yeah. And I think that it was somewhere around 2013 when that trust formed for Grimsby.
Right. Yeah.
And they had Operation Promotion, if you remember that, where they were raising money to get players, to buy players so that they could get promoted out of the National League. And that was that like 2013 to 2016 run where they'd went, I think it was like 3 seasons going into the playoffs and then failing in the playoffs and not make it. That's some good overlap. So we have that with a lot of our, I guess, your battle buddies. We were in the National League together. We know how bad it is. And so there's like a lot of support for others that are going through similar things that we're going through. Sad thing for teams like Barry or Southend, who recently have their troubles. And it's like you feel for those teams in the National League who get stuck there. And then if you've been there, I don't know if it's misery loves company, or you just commiserate within the misery of like, we're both here. We know what it's like, both being stuck here for so long.
Yeah. And I think on the flip side to that, that's kind of why we get a bit of animosity, because everybody loved us when we were that lovable, friendly club that had been through the mill and we'd come out the other end. But nobody likes us when we've got money. But I think we've been able to remind some fan bases that we've been through the rubbish by trying to donate. I know a lot of Wrexham fans helped share the South End stuff, and they've been really positive about us as a club in return, and Grimsby have been really positive. So it's kind of like we've got that ability to remind clubs that, we're going through some good times and a bit of luck now. But it could have easily been Grimsby that Rob and Ryan picked, or it could have easily been Southend that they decided to invest in. We are just lucky. We've got a good story and all that sort of stuff. But as we found, from doing other podcasts, there's a lot of teams that are very similar to us, and it could have easily been any of those others. They just had to look at a different club on that one day, and maybe they decided to have gone with them instead. So I think once we remind these fans that we're not all bad, we're not all glory hunters, then they kind of get on board with us a little bit more. That's what I like to think anyway. I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of the impression I get.
I think in a way you just solved world peace. You're like, look, we're all basically the same. We're all people. We have battles in past that we all need to get through, and if we just work together, we can all, rising tide raises all boats. Speaking of Grimsby Town and those boats, the Codfathers over there with their unofficial club website, Cod Almighty.
Cod Almighty, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, each one of these that we're looking into, these teams into League Two, you see how at any point in time, and I agree with you that if Rob and Ryan looked at any team, there's a story behind any of them that you could get behind. You have great supporters. Okay, so let me stop myself right now before past self and future self smacks me in the face. Okay, outside of MK Dons, just about every team outside of that one team has a past that you could rally behind. They have their highs, they have their lows, and they have those parts where, like you were saying, those endearing qualities, those that either past suffering or trials and tribulations, which endear people towards their plight, their history and their fight and their ongoing battle to do well, just as we are. And so we could see a lot of ourselves within them. Grimsby, they very well could have been picked by Rob and Ryan. They, I believe, have the oldest football stand in the UK, which is their original main stand. I believe is the same original main stand that, you know, all parts have been renovated and reconstructed. But I believe I could be wrong, but I believe that is one of their claim to fame, that is the oldest original football stand in the UK.
I didn't know that, but that a lot of these sort of clubs are littered with that kind of story of, oh, we've got the oldest turnstiles, or we've got the oldest toilets, or something. You know, it's right. Part and parcel of some of these, you know, really old clubs and the history they've got. When we're Grimsby formed, 1878. So that's, you know, 145 years ago. It's a long time ago, isn't it? Really. Yeah. Generations of people have been Grimsby fans and Wrexham fans, haven't they?
Well, and like we were saying before, you have all these clubs that are, you know, renovating their stadiums as they get bigger, as they get promotion. We had the 1980s where fires had brought down a lot of the old wooden stands. So anybody coming close to, you know, breaking that record probably, you know, isn't slated up. You know, the next closest stadium, you know, maybe is 20 years old or 30 years. I'm not sure, but you know, it might not be that close. And at any point in time, it's like, Rob, Ryan, or people like Rob and Ryan who are watching what's happening with Welcome to Wrexham could very well be looking at any of these teams as well and saying, hey, look at the story. Grimsby Town. Yeah, sure. It might be a horrible place according to top 10 places to move in the UK. But in 2019, they sold over 1 million pizzas in a day or something. They're quite an amazing town. Grimsby.
It's well, you know, like, yeah, Rob and Ryan are probably the most famous to have done it, but you've got Salford FC that are owned by a group of ex-Man United players. You've got Stockport are owned by a really granted he was a local boy, but their owner, you know, they've got just as much cash flow as Wrexham have got. And then you've got Portsmouth, who actually Rob and Ryan kind of followed Portsmouth's model. They're owned by Michael Eisner, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is the former chairman and CEO of Walt Disney Company. So it's not, there's that Disney money. Yeah, there's a lot of money there. And he bought Portsmouth because they were a fan-owned club, and Portsmouth actually, when they became fan-owned, followed Wrexham's model. They went through the whole charter and everything. So I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I heard that it was a Portsmouth representative that got in touch with Wrexham because of that history of them collaborating with us on the supporters trust stuff and using our constitution as a basis. So they knew that there was contacts there, and they'd been asked to get in touch with clubs and that potentially could be bought by Rob and Ryan. So it will be interesting now we've seen the Rob and Ryan effect in terms of the publicity side of things. It will be interesting to see how many rich owners now start looking at clubs like Grimsby. Say, you know, I want a piece of that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think Hugh Jackman's going to be buying Chester anytime soon, is he? But
he better not.
No, he better not. No. He's already walking around with a Wrexham cap all the time. I think he's a Wrexham fan for life, isn't he? But
he would. That would be the worst heel turn in football history. He just rips his mask off and he's like, ha, 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 I was Chester all along.
So yeah, it's going to be, you probably see a tail sort of making its way in.
I did.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone tries to follow that, or whether they actually, on the flip side, think, you know what, that market's already cornered. We're not going to go the football route. We might try some other sporting avenue. But
I would say, I would argue against that or not even that you're making that statement, but I would say people are probably in the process of doing it right now and have the works going to some lower league teams, and people will do it. Capitalism is capitalism. People will do it till you can't. And so if we've learned anything about like how much of XYZ can you sell, if we watch our superhero movies, if we watch our television shows, a lot of these seasons should have ended in 2 seasons, but they go on for 6, because if they can make money, they're going to do it till they can't. And so this model, it's fresh, it's working. It is going to be hard to duplicate in the same manner because of the documentary and the complete approach, the novelty of the newness, but it doesn't mean people can't remix it in their own way. I mean,
there's a Burnley FC documentary that came out about their season last year. They had a really good season, got promoted from the Championship to the Premier League. Their manager is an ex-City legend, Vincent Kompany, played centre-back for City for years, and they did a documentary, and I've not seen it personally, but I've seen a lot of people say that the editing style is really similar to Welcome to Wrexham. Yeah, okay. I'd have to watch it to make a proper comment on it, but they've although Wrexham isn't the first football documentary, I think it might be the first to break through past sports fans. People, maybe not so much you, Ram, because I know you're into your sports, but there's a lot of people who are on the askWxm community. People like Sherry Motels on Mars and Sarah Jane, who's S Janey on Twitter. They weren't into sport before they watched Welcome to Wrexham, and there's plenty of other people, and that. I think now instead of making documentaries like All or Nothing, the Arsenal, Spurs, City one,
Sunderland till you die.
Yeah, they're all going to try and now break through and make it a more human, interesting sort of thing, rather than just going for, this is the sports, this is how the sports happened, this is the sports drama. Oh no, the team lost. Oh no, the team won. What whichever way around it is, it's going to be more about people now, isn't it? I think. Which, in fairness, Sunderland Till I Die did do that, but I do think Wrexham's the first to really capitalize on it.
Well, yeah, and if you look at, sports is an analogy to battle and combat. When warring factions couldn't war anymore and there was peace treaties, then sports came about. And so you had people going onto a pitch, onto a field to still get that thrill, that rush of competition, of us versus them, without the consequences of war and battle. And that analogy and analogous nature towards humanity in sports still speaks to all of our caveman brains, where we still enjoy it. We still watch it, and we're at the edge of our seats and feeling the height of emotions, that roller coaster of, agony and tears of jubilation. On the opposite end, you have the, picture of the promotion, the celebration with the cup being raised behind, or the trophy being raised behind you. And there was tears on that day. And if you look at whatever good storytelling is, it has those, we talked about Pixar and John Lasseter with the making you cry, making you laugh, and having the equal parts on that roller coaster. Sports has that built in. It already has a narrative device. And 100%. It just so happened it took 2 people that know storytelling pretty well. Rob McElhenney with the longest running comedy show, I think, in TV history, over 20 years or whatever it's been on the air. And then you have, superhero Deadpool himself, who owns his own production company now, who know narrative storytelling and looked at sports and had that outside image, where before, people that really knew sports made sports media for sports fans. And then you had people from the outside that said, well, no, more people than just sports will like this. Like, this is a story that is universal. Anybody can go after an underdog and cheer for them.
Exactly. And it's one thing that sometimes I worry about a little bit, Ran, if I'm completely honest, about the future of the club, in the sense that we've become a story rather than a sports team. That does occasionally make me not for people like you and others who have become proper diehards, and you're as good as a local fan. Do you know what I mean? But there are.
Thank you. I paid you well for this.
There are people out there who do just see us as an entertainment product, which is fine. We need as a club, we need that input, we need that money. It's not a criticism. I've watched, I've mentioned it on here quite a few times, when I watched a 30 for 30 about the Lakers and Celtics rivalry in the 80s, and I've become a slight consumer of Lakers products because of that. There is definitely a place for it, but I just don't want to completely lose the soul because we become an entertainment product rather than a sports team. But that's another argument for another day. It's just interesting how, looking at people, Reddit is where I see it a lot more than anywhere else, because I suppose Reddit's it's a platform for people who like certain things to find other like-minded people, isn't it? More than Twitter, which is just angry people shouting at each other virtually. I've seen a few people sort of comment like, "Oh, this is going to make such a good story." It's like, yeah, it is, but like, live it now. Don't wait for season 2 to come out. Get on board, listen to the games, watch the games. It's happening right now. You don't have to wait a whole year. And then like people like celebrating Notts County. Like, I don't want to celebrate Notts County. Like, no, bugger off. I'm not bothered about their narrative. I'm only interested in that Wrexham.
Well, that's a good story. It's a good story. It's a good story. Well, and now I can't say that I'm impervious to that, because I do love a good story. Like, part of my background comes from the storytelling world. So I do love a good story. But so Notts County, I can appreciate and respect what Notts County did. But I also, I wasn't celebrating out of my seat when they got promotion.
Maybe it's just the tribalism, like you were saying earlier, about the war inside of it, is just so ingrained in me that I don't really want to see anyone else succeed but Wrexham.
Yeah, because
I'm not interested in anybody else succeeding, but I can see how someone from an outsider perspective is like, they like Wrexham more, but they've kind of grown fond of Notts County or Stockport or whoever, because that's how their journey's sort of forming.
They'll be like that until, I would say, if you went in person to a game and you're from afar, it's easy. Right, it's easy to be like, okay, I'm a fan of all these people. I'm a fan. But when you go in person, any of the new fans that are watching this, that are brand new and haven't been to matches, it's a lot different when you show up to a match, and the opposing team's fans treat you a lot different. It's not that same cordial niceness when you see them in person, and when you guys are shouting, it definitely is akin back to the which I'm going to say, I think it's fun. I think it's super fun. I found myself making some gestures in the stands that I wouldn't normally make.
I think that's why I want us to lose that, because it is fun. As long as, I'm going to be out.
Damn it.
Just conscious of losing that from an entertainment point of view, because it's fun, and then you've got to take a step back, and after the game you can be friendly and polite with each other, but it's war when it's happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I think that element of it, though, is part of the attractiveness to it. So you can't remove that element. So as you're speaking about, and I know this is the tangent that we went on, and it's not Grimsby Town, but I think it all does relate into watching sports. Is as it gets bigger, you're going to get those fair weather fans. You're going to get people who just show up when times are good, and they root for when the story is good. You have some people here in the US and probably over there that only watch during like the playoffs and the end of a season. They don't watch the games throughout the season, and they only watch when something big is going to happen. There's a cup game or there's something else that large is going on. And you have that percentage of people. You have the diehards that are there when it's raining, when it's snowing, when it's sunshine. And
definitely. And there's no shock that, like, say, if it was a season where we were playing Chester or Shrewsbury, the pre-takeover, when everything was selling out, like our average attendance would be somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, depending on the season. But we'd play either of those clubs and there'd be 8,000 there. People, it's even pre all of this has definitely been more fair weather fans. I don't want to criticize anybody who goes to the matches, but we weren't getting 10,000 pre-takeover, and most of them are locals. So, it is what it is. It is, like you say, it's the nature of sport. I don't want to be too harsh on anybody. I've got no problem. I would be lying if I said I went to every single Wales game. Sometimes I don't watch every Wales international game, but there are people who go home and away to watch Wales every single game. I'll just generally watch the big games, or if I'm free, I'll watch a match.
You mean middle name Yuns? Bill Yuns Long doesn't go to every match. But to that point though, it's that numbers game. So the more people, the eyeballs that you get in front of Wrexham or any team that's out there, the more fair weather fans you're going to get, the more hardcore fans you're going to get. For each percentage of people that just show up for the end of the season or a cup run or a promotion run, you're going to get people like me who got hooked in. So you have now more diehard, which like I consider myself like a new diehard, but like I love the team and I'm not turning away. Like I'm watching the matches, whoever they're playing under 21s, I'm still watching those matches. I'm still going to be watching them. Yeah. And so you're getting a percentage of still the fan base across that whole spectrum of the fan base. You're just getting larger numbers of them. On average, the audience that tunes into a match is going to be higher on average because you have a bigger fan base that's just been cultivated. You have larger numbers of maybe fans that vary on that spectrum, but overall you have more. And I think that there is a bit of the culture that is part of the mystique and part of the allure that is part and parcel that you can't get rid of. And part of that like diehard culture that like ultras, if you will, that are now in the tech end that stand up the whole time and sing the whole match, are chanting and are in unison and bringing that atmosphere is part of the allure, part of that mystique. When you're watching the Welcome to Wrexham, they're not showing the people chewing bubblegum, sitting quietly in a corner. They're showing that volume turned up, that excitement level. And so that excitement level breeds more excitement level. And I think like culture wise, yes, numbers wise, you're going to get more across the spectrum, but you're also going to get more of that culture too. It's part and parcel. You can't have the Wrexham story without those bits that are integral to it.
100%. And look, there is absolutely 100. I don't want to seem bitter. There's absolutely 100% a place for every type of fan. Everybody is welcome at Wrexham. Everybody's welcome. I'd imagine at most clubs in the whole of the UK, you would be welcomed, whether you're somebody who's a visiting tourist or whether you're somebody who has maybe never really been to many football games in your local area, but you've decided you want to start getting into it. There's no place whatsoever for gatekeeping people who want to get involved with any club. But also on the flip side, don't be surprised if a local or somebody who's a hardcore can get a bit tribal, because it kind of works both ways. You could be tribal against the opposition, but people will also be very protective of what they've been into for the last 20 years. And if you sort of come into the mix being disrespectful intentionally or unintentionally, you might get somebody telling you where to go.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's part and parcel, right? It's like, you're going to have that, that's going to be there. I think it's part of the fun. Like people might hate Notts County Zone.
That guy's getting way too many mentions on this podcast. He's doing wonders for himself, isn't he? The engagement.
Well, and I said it before, I'll say it again. I think that it's a Wrexham fan who is just trying to, because to make an enemy that's outside of the club. Like we were talking about before, when you had Alex Hamilton, you had like for Doncaster, Ken Richardson, you have these people who took over clubs, who owned them and were driving them into the dirt. And they were evil people you could put your finger on. They were tangible, real people that you can point to and say, here's what's wrong and here's the evil. And when you have a season like we're having, and it starts off Parkinson is amazing. He's a great manager. In Parky, we trust. Most of us believe that. Then you have a great squad who not much needed to be changed. We didn't need to bring in too many players to compete in League Two, and we're not competing in League Two. Who's our boogeyman? Who is the person that we can point to? Who is the person that we can direct that anger? Because if we don't direct it towards one of those straw men or those boogeymen, then it gets directed at each other, which we definitely have been doing this season, where people have been pointing fingers at each other. But when you have a Notts County zone, then everybody can just universally say, no. You know who the worst is. It's not you. It's not you. No matter what you just said, you disrespected my family. That's still not as bad as Notts County zone. Like we can, at the end of the day, we can still get along, but we're not Notts County, which like lends me to think in some weird multiverse. Notts County Zone is a Wrexham supporter who is fighting the good cause, taking the hits of all the anger. And just when you forget about there's some infighting going on, he rears his ugly little head up and he says something that you're like, who would ever say that? And then directs all the anger back.
The hero we needed but didn't know we needed sort of thing was, well, I can't remember the exact quote from The Dark Knight, but you know what I mean, don't you? That sort of like
not the one we wanted or the one we needed or something.
Yeah.
Bill, you ready for some Crest and Badge?
Yes, I am ready for some Crest and Badge.
Well, I don't think this one needs a lot of research. I don't think this needs a lot of explanation. I have it pulled up here. I looked up, there's not much to it. So if you want to go ahead and just state what you see, I think you're going to be 100% correct.
Well, Grimsby Town play in black and white, so their badge is black and white. It's a fishing town, so there's a boat and some fish on there. And I think that's about all you need to say, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So exactly right. There's a little bit of a debate behind what some of the stuff means. The three fish on there, some people say it's a nod to the three lions. Like
from the England crest. Yeah.
So there's some, but it's not confirmed, so don't know. Some say that it's cod. Grimsby being a big fish and chips. That's a trawler, and that's actually two boats. So you have two. Oh. Yeah. So you have one boat which is side, which I don't know if they're like bow or aft or whatever it is, and then you have one that is front side. So if you look, there's like an arrow and almost looks like a cross. That's a front of a ship coming towards you.
Okay.
So that's two trawlers, and then that 1878 they added to the badge in 2022, I believe. There's a little controversy, and I say controversy, I don't know how much it was, but they made the outline of like the red more bold, and so it was just slightly wider, and apparently there were some.
Is it like they've added like a little flag with the date onto one of the
1878
ships?
Yeah. And so with that addition of the flag 1878, they made the line slightly more bold, and they reverted, I believe, back to the thinner lines on this. But it was to what we talked about before when they were updating for vector images and scaling. They made the new digital crest and they made them slightly more bold. And that little bit, I don't know what percentage of the fan base, but there was a bit of the fan base that was like, you can't do that. This is the way the badge has been. And I believe this badge has been the same since the 70s. At one point in time, I think when it was Grimsby, you had said the name, it starts with a P. It was like the old name, and they played at that.
Grimsby Pelham, was it?
Pelham. Yeah. When it was Grimsby Pelham, I believe they had 3 trawlers on the crest, on the badge.
Right.
And then so now it's 3 fish, possibly 3 codfathers, and two trawlers and a flag. But yeah, pretty straightforward. I would say probably the coolest thing. I love those vertical stripes that they have. They're striking like that.
It's quite. Well, one thing about Grimsby that they play with red, the black and white stripes, black shorts, but unlike the likes of Notts County, Newcastle, other teams that play in black and white, they actually play with red socks, and that's their I actually don't know the story behind that, but they're very particular about them playing in red socks. And when they played us in Wembley for the FA Trophy, they played in black socks because we were playing in red socks. And a few of going back to that superstition stuff. I remember a few of their fans before the game were like, "Oh, we're playing in black socks. Oh, well, we've definitely lost because we're not playing in the red socks." So
yeah.
I don't know where that connection comes from, but yeah, there's that there.
Well, anyone in Grimsby or Grimsby Town that knows about this, well, if you're in Grimsby, I don't know if you have internet access, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They seem like fine people, but if you know about where the red comes in, because it seems pivotal, like they wore the red socks with the kit before. The red has definitely been a standard, on the crest and badge since the 70s. So the color is definitely one of their chosen. As far as what we're looking for this upcoming match, how do you feel?
I think we just got to go and build on the last two performances and try and get a win, to be honest. They're the type of tough side that you need to grind results out, and I'd just be happy with a 1 or 2 goal win, to be honest, Rand. So I'm gonna stick my neck out and say 2-1 again.
2-1. And do you see any of our new players coming in? I don't know your feelings on Fletcher.
I'd like to see him get game time again, but I just think maybe because he hasn't had the proper preseason, it might be a case of he comes off the bench again like he did on Saturday. But you never know with Parkinson; he holds his cards close to his chest, so it could be that he gets a start. It was nice to see Mullin come on, but I really don't think he, watching that game, I don't think he's quite ready for a full 90 minutes. So it might be that we see Palmer and Fletcher get a bit of game time together, or maybe he'll just stick with Dalby. Yeah, how do you think it's going to go, Ran?
I'm there with you where there's a lot of questions that are lying out there. Mullin, seeing him back, there's something just about his presence that lifted up, right? Like, yeah. Not even his quality of play, but just seeing the person, the talisman, it's the iconoclast. There is an imagery that surrounds Mullin. Just his image being there seemed to be a spark amongst the team too.
The noise when he was about to come on was ridiculous. It's the loudest I've ever heard the race course for a player coming back on, from injury. And I've heard some good atmospheres for people coming back, but it was incredible, really, really incredible. It just shows how synonymous he's become with the fans and with the club.
I think that he is the poor equivalent, and I know that this is a horrible equivalent, but they say like if you drive a sports car, that you eventually forget that you're driving, like that Lamborghini. It just becomes a daily driver. And I think in last season, we had that Lamborghini, we had that sports car, and that we got used to always having it. So we started to say like other players are more pivotal in the season. So as we got to the end of the season, we were saying, I think the player of the season was Lee, or I think the player of the season is, and like, although other players like Lee are outstanding players, I don't think anybody on the team can touch the pivotal nature of Mullin and what he really means as the core and the foundation that the team sits on. By the sound of the crowd, your emotions don't lie. When you see that Lee's starting in the game, you're happy because he's a good player, but nobody amounts to Mullin, at least at this point in time in history. He has that godlike status of, he's descending from the heavens.
Yeah, well, I may be ascending to heaven if I don't disappear soon, Ran. So I'm going to have to call it there. Right. Although I do like that analogy. It's been an absolute pleasure trying to teach you how to Wrexham.
Yes.
We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, well, yes, Bill, thank you for teaching me how to Wrexham the Grimsby Town way. You have a great day, and hopefully I'll watch you on about 4 or 5 more podcasts, or listen to you over the next couple of weeks. Anybody who's watching this and runs a podcast, contact them at Bill Belong 1864 on Twitter X. You know him. This has been Ran. This has been Bill. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time. Up the mother, Shaggin' Town.
Hey, up the sound.